Okay. So, um, right. So we're setting ourselves up to do tests on database functions, which means we have to do our whole database test rigmarole. And when you test a database, it's important to have a separate test database that you're using because you want your tests to have completely predictable data in the database, right? And you also don't want to be changing the production database in any way. You know, if you're Facebook, you don't want to be like just sort of randomly adding new users, test users to the production database and then, you know, removing them and whatever. So, okay. So let's, so in source, we have our db directory. And in the db directory, let's a db.js where we'll set up our connection. And so, right, okay. And so let's, so the first thing we'll do is const PG. Do we usually do PGP? I told myself that I wasn't going to look at old code, and you know, but man, I do it all the time, right? Okay, so and then we'll say const db equals PGP connection. Oh, and we can't do connection strings anymore, right? Wasn't that big bug that we found out? Ah, interesting. Okay, all right, so let's do a connection string again. It got resolved. Okay. So, and now for the connection string, let's say it's going to be if the, so let's check if process.env.nodeEnv is test, then it will be process.env. Let's look. I said test db URL. Okay. Let's do that. Okay. So, all right. So test db URL. Otherwise, it'll be process.env.db URL. Fair? All right. And then db equals this, and then module.exports equals, should we do db as an object or db as itself? Like, which should we do? Should we put the curly braces around it or not put the curly braces around it? Are we ever going to export anything else from this file? Then we might as well not put the curly braces around it. Okay, great. All right, so now we've got that. So now we're going to need some helper files for the test itself that reset the database, right? We want to be able to start off with a clean database every time. So let's make that. So in the test directory, I'm going to make a db, or let's make an actions directory maybe. And then I'll also make a utilities directory. And then inside utilities, I'm going to put db reset JS. All right. All right, so now let's do const db, and I don't have to destructure the array because I just exported the db as the actual export. And where are we? Let's see. We need to go up one, up another one, and then into db. Okay, I like this about code, that it tells you whether or not you're importing something legit.
Well, Adam does that too if you have ESLint.
Oh, if you have ESLint, yeah. Okay. Okay, so now, okay, great. So we want to, so let's make a function that that clears the database. Yeah, it'll do it exactly. It'll do a truncate. And then let's make another function that seeds the database with, just some stuff that we feel like we have to have in there. And then we'll sort of combine those into reset database. God, I feel like we're moving way faster than we ever have on this project. Look at this, there are like 3 functions. I think we're gonna actually finish before 9:50. Okay, and then we'll do, I'm gonna do the object here, because I don't know, maybe for some reason I'll want one of these other ones somewhere. I don't know. I'm gonna leave myself the option anyway. Okay, so clear DB. So for this one, we're going to use the truncate, right? And so I'm going to say const tables, and I'm going to put my tables here. I think I did this in a slightly different way in my personal project, where I didn't have to make sure that I was keeping this up. Let me go back to my personal project just for a minute, just to remember how I did that. Okay, so if we go into server and test and DB, and no, it must be in utilities, DB reset, and so I did a get tables function where it just told me all the tables that were in the database. Let's use that. Seems better than a. Okay, so get all the tables. It's a function. It returns a promise. This is not something that I've been doing for our DB things, but because my project has classes and other things in it, and I actually, for every module, I actually have a JS doc. Let's see. So, but I'm not really doing that here, so I'll just take that out. Okay, so it returns a promise resolving to an array of objects, each representing a table. Each object has a key table name. I love past Bonnie. Really? No, really. This is good shit, right? I don't have to try it out and see how it works. Yeah. All right, so cool. And now I actually, oh, that's right. I'm not supposed to copy from any old code, but okay. So let's, because the truncate tables, I'm going to use the same. And here I actually am using a lot of async and await in my, oh, look, I have reset. I did this as reset DB instead of clear DB. I'm going to change it to clear. So basically I'm if it's production, if I'm like somehow running this in, you know, like somehow the production was like I somehow didn't set the env, I don't want to clear the production database, right? So I'm just like, get me out of here, right? Otherwise, and so, well, apparently we're going to talk about async and await. Have you guys been using async and await? I like them. You have to use try and catch instead of the dot then and dot catch, which I have to say is a little uglier. But in general, you get to do things like this. Const tables equals await get tables, right? As opposed to having to have a callback in the dot then that handles the tables. Then I have to do a promise dot all. Are you guys done promise dot alls before? db.multi. I've never even heard of such a thing. Let's look at that. Oh, db.multiverse. Got it?
No, it's not the one. It's like DB, you know when we use DB1 or DB.
Oh, yeah, like it's, there's PG promise documentation? Okay. Like this one?
Yeah.
Okay, where do I find? I've never been able to successfully navigate this documentation. Let's so this is something sometimes what I do, like I'll do something like I'll search for PG promise, and then I'll search for one, many, query, any, multi, you know, just to see if I can get something that has all of those, and learn by example. And then we get the A+ interfaces. Let's see, chaining queries, common mistakes. Okay. Right. Now this feels more like a Roam session where we're sort of like blindly going through documentation. Oh, thank you. It seems like there must have been a better way to do that, but.
Basically, the screen is just a bunch of queries.
It's just a bunch of queries. Oh, it wasn't there. Okay. Does it do the queries in, does it do them like in order, or does it do them like in random order? Do you know?
No.
I mean, does it like send them all off and then see what comes back? Okay. That in promise.all, like you get no guarantee of orders. So cool. Let's okay. So let's just take the async out, and we'll say get tables dot then tables. So first we'll do const table names dot map. So const table names equals tables dot map table, right? Because do you guys understand why we have to do this? Yeah, it's because this returned a promise resolving to an array of objects, and each object had a key table names. So if I want to get just an array of those tables, of those names, if I want an array of strings, then I have to map it like this. Celeste, Bree, do you have questions on that? All right, so All right, so now we've got the table names. Now, actually, you know what? I'm going to change this now, though. I want to do table queries. And then I'll do table, and I'm going to return not table name, but I'll return, let's see, I'll return this thing. Oh, which is basically what I was doing down here. Ah, thank you. Oh, okay. What was I even going for there? Okay, and now I'll say db.multi. And db.multi, do we give it an array?
No, just a string.
A string.
You probably want semicolons.
Semicolons. Okay, so we're going to do a semicolon dot join. That's how you do it in Python. Is that how you do it in?
I mean, you could just add a semicolon to
No, but I need to make this a string, right? So I'm taking all of these, and I'm. Is that how dot join works? This is how it works in Python. I don't know how. Let's.
No, I think it's join and then inside of the join.
Okay, so. So like join.
It's R, not join.
Got it. Okay. So it's opposite from Python, where it's a method on the array rather than a method on the string. This actually makes more sense. Don't mind what I said that. Okay. All right. Interesting that it doesn't think that there's a db.multi. This is actually usually pretty accurate, but I'm trusting Celeste. It usually is good to trust Celeste. Okay. Okay, and then the db.multi, we have to do another dot then, which I'm not crazy about. But I can do this. I can do like that. And then, why don't you like this? Oh, I think that's no longer necessary. All right. And now I can do a dot then here, right? Because now this dot then is going to be dealing with the resolution of this promise, which is much nicer than nesting a dot then inside this dot then. Would you agree? You see what I'm saying? All right, so actually, you know what? I can just return this. I don't even need to do anything. If something goes wrong, it'll get caught here. And I don't care about the output of that, right? Okay. So we're not doing the try, we're doing this, and it returns a promise whose resolution is unimportant. All right, any questions on what we did here? So first we got all the tables in the database so that we don't have to maintain a separate array of the tables that happen to be in this database. And then we go through, we don't truncate it if it happens to be production, because that would be bad. And then we, if it's not production, then we'll reset. Okay.
How do you, this is not on topic. How do you leave those notes again?
Leave what notes?
At top of like Yeah, between 15 and 18.
PG, yeah, so this is JS doc. In code, and I know you use code and Atom, there's a extension in Atom called doc blocker that basically does the same thing. But yeah, so in code, I have a function that does not have it. I do this. I just do /**, which is JS doc, and then I hit return. Oh, and this function doesn't have any inputs, so it doesn't give me the inputs. But if it did, it would. We're going to be doing some functions later. I always do JS doc because I think it's good form, and I've been trained by Python that every function needs a doc string. So, so yeah, well, I'll be doing more JS doc, but in general, and you can look up JS doc as you know, as a standardized way to document JavaScript. Okay, so we're clearing the DB. Great. Seeding the DB. So now we're not in boilerplate so much. Now we're actually oh, and let me make sure. Yeah, this needs to return this. Why is it so important that that returns that?
You have access to the result in the then.
So I have access to the results in the then. However, this is a promise whose resolution is unimportant. I don't care about the result in the then. So maybe I don't need to do this. All right, drill this into your JavaScript brain. If I do not put return here, then this function will return, the function will return before this gets done, and I'm in asynchronicity hell, right? I need to return to make sure this function doesn't return before this actually gets done. Okay. Okay, so right. So now I'm actually, so this was all just kind of boilerplate that I was doing here, but now let's actually go into, let's go back and take a look at what our actions are actually going to be and what kinds of things we're going to need to seed in our database. What type of data do we want to have in our fresh, clean database? So I'd say we need a user. So we'll have a user in there. That user, let's see, that user is going to have a password. It's going to be hard for us to deal with that password right now with bcrypt, so we might sort of sidestep that a little bit until we've actually written all the bcrypt stuff. We are going to have a city, right? We'll have to have a city in there. Let's give that city a post, and let's give that post a comment. Okay. So first, let's make a user. Okay. So I want to, I'm just going to make some queries that, you know, like, so my first is going to be create, my create user query is going to be, yeah, cool. Insert into users. And then we give the column names. Let's remember what our users table looks like. Okay, so we're going to want to give a name, an email. Joined at will get run by default. Let's not put a user image URL for now, and we'll put a primary city of Oakland.
Would it throw an error if you don't pass in a password?
It will. So right now, yeah, because of the not null. So right now, let's actually, so I'm going to say,
You can pass the password.
Yeah, can we just use, well, right now I'm going to say password is plain text, and I'm going to give myself a to-do note. When I have a password encryption function, save encrypted password instead. But for now, we'll do plain text. And I also want to do const city equals Oakland, because I'm going to use that in both my city query and my users query. So name, primary city. Okay, and then let's do, how do we do this? Is that how I do it?
But values has to be.
And actually, I can't, I'm in a backtick situation here, so I can't do, this is going to try and replace it with, you know, with something. Well, no, because there are no dollars. Do I need a dollar? I think I, no. Okay, let's do some research on this. So PG promise named, sure. Yeah, dollar, da, 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 right? And notice you can do this or you can do this, but this, because I'm in backticks, is going to try and do template literal substitution. And it's going to be very sad because I don't actually have a variable called name, right? So if I did this, the backticks would try and find the JavaScript variable called name. It wouldn't find it. This would be undefined. It would be bad. If I do this, now this is going to get interpreted when PG promise gets its hand on it. And it's going to use the value of the name key or parameter or property, sorry, key property in the object that I pass as my second parameter to PG promise. So let's see this in action. And I'm just going to call this city. You'll see why in a minute. Okay. So just for now, we'll do db dot one. Let's do db1. Okay, I like your hints sometimes. Create user query. And now I'm going to give it an object as my second parameter instead of an array, and that's how I can use this. So I'm going to say name is testy test. Email is, here I'm actually gonna do user params is this. Email is test. Okay. And now I can actually just say password and city, right? Because I actually have things called password and city up here. And now when I put this here, now this will from this user params object, it will draw the name, the email, the password, and the city.
It's funny, I've always just like hard coded it when I'm seeding my database.
Okay.
Why am I not providing password?
Because I'm making great question. I'm making an object and I'm using the JavaScript object shortcut that says if I have a variable named password, then make that both the key and the value. You know what I mean by that? Yeah. And that's why I called this city and not primary city, because I knew I had an object named city or a string named city up here. Yeah. All right, cool. So, all right, so this should do what we want. We'll do a dot then, results, and then we'll do a dot catch. And actually, you know what? If there's a problem, I don't even want to live anymore, right? So, why did I put a 1 in there? Because what? Because something went wrong. In general, I'm giving it the code that I exited with. 0 means A-okay. Anything other than 0 is shit's fucked up. And like if this were a real command line program, I would like have meanings to all my codes and stuff like that. But for now, it's just like, yeah, this is not a happy exit. Okay.
Why didn't we return on this?
We absolutely do. Oh, I'm so glad you're developing your promise return sense. Yeah. No, that's perfect. Perfect. Okay. And I haven't done my JS doc here. All right. Now that I have a user, I can, oh, well, the user doesn't have to actually be associated with anything, does it? Does it? The post has to have a user. The post has to have both a user and a city. Well, how are we going to do that? I like here, I can get my username from this, but how am I going to get my city ID both at the same time? What if I do the multi? So if I do the multi, the values, right, and what does it return? What does multi return? It returns a promise that resolves to an array. Let's just try some stuff. Okay. So let's
So I'm seeing on the same stack of the full page there's also .task that allows you to chain promises like chain order.
how wondrous the world. Okay, so oh, fuck you. Okay. So on the same, okay, wait. Can you Slack me that, please? Stack Overflow. I'm telling you, when I was your age, no Stack Overflow. db.task. When queries depend on each other, we should chain them within a task. T.1, select star, then user. Why is this? I don't know that this is going to help us though, because it's still chaining them with a bunch of .thens, and this .then is not going to have access to stuff from this .then. I honestly, that is interesting when they depend on each other, where they do. Okay, but I don't know why this is better to do a task than to just like do a bunch of individual queries with .then. Hold on, I'm having an idea that I want to get down before I forget it. I actually want to declare some globals. Does that make sense? You understand what I mean by that? Probably not. Okay, so I'm going to do a let user ID city ID. And now in this result, the only thing I'm going to do here is set user ID to result.id. Basically, I'm just saving the ID of this result so that it's accessible to my later .thens. Okay, so let's try that again, and then we can do another .then, and it doesn't have to be nested because nested .thens give me the creeps. All right, so here we actually don't care what the result of the last one was. And now we're going to do a db.1 create city query, which has not been done yet, and city params, which have not been defined yet. And as a matter of fact, this is one of those where we can actually do the this, where I just want to return this anyway, so I might as well just give it this function, right? So it's going to just run this, and whatever this returns is going to be this one here. And now I can say, so we can call this user results. James, you were saying you usually just hard code your seed. It's probably easier, but this is in some ways more robust because we're not depending on something to have a particular ID. But I think we're taking a lot of time on this. We're learning stuff, so it's not bad, but it's probably quicker just to just write a bunch of SQL and just, run that. Okay, so city, all right, so then city results, actually, let's just, so we're just storing that in case we need it in the future. And then we'll do a db.1 post query, create post query. And I'm actually going to create some, I'm going to create the post params here because the post params are going to need both the city ID and the user ID.
So is there a reason that the db.1s aren't getting returned there?
No, because I'm stupid. because
I see it a lot.
because
I
I'm
don't know.
testing you. Yes. Okay. This one doesn't need it because I'm giving it a function rather than, I'm giving it this function. So whatever that returns, that, I'm not calling this from within another function. I'm just calling it directly. This one needed it, as Alex pointed out. This one needed it, as you pointed out. And then post result. And return db.1 comment, create comment query. And here. Okay. It's 10 o'clock, so we'll have to fill this out later, but in general, okay, we're getting there. Okay, so yeah, check-in.